Hi everybody! Here's our last lesson for the week. As we move forward in chapter 8, we are going to be continuing 8.1 that we started in our last video. So the second half of this lesson is going to be talking about adding and subtracting polynomials. You definitely need your book for this lesson so that you can follow along, because some of the problems are word problems, and I'm not going to write the entire word problem on my whiteboard. So in your book, you are going to be on page 476 is where we're going to start, and that will be problem 4 in 8.1. You should have paper and pencil, as well as you can print out my notes that I'm sending out to you, or at least make sure you have opened the document and have read it. Okay, so in our last lesson, we talked about adding and subtracting monomials, common terms. Well, today we're going to use that skill, but we're going to apply it to polynomials. And if you remember, a polynomial is just more than 2 monomials. So we can have polynomials that have 2 terms in them or 22. It can be as many as we want. So we're going to probably see somewhere between 2 and 5 in the problems that we'll be doing together. So the first thing I want you to do is to open to page 476 and look at problem number 4. There's a word problem there, and it's talking about a researcher who studied the number of overnight stays in U.S. National Park Service campgrounds and comparing it to the backcountry of the national park system. Okay, so researchers studied how many people stay in these parks. They've come up with a baseline equation to talk about those numbers. And we're really only going to be dealing with the math here. So they have established that the number of people who stay in the campgrounds can be expressed with this equation. And make sure you're following along with your books and looking at the note handout, because some of these numbers, as you can see, they're a little bit more involved and complicated, and you need to make sure you're paying attention to exponents in these problems. For the backcountry, we have this number. Okay, again, sometimes we can get caught up in the words of the word problem and lose sight of the math. And so in this problem, I just want to focus on the math that's happening. We need to be able to add these 2 polynomials. And as we did with our monomials, the only things that I can combine and add together are common terms. So there are 2 methods that we can use for these problems. On my first problem, for problem 4 and the practice, we're going to do the horizontal method. For my next problem, problem 5, I'm going to do, I said that the wrong way. I said it backwards. For this one, I'm going to do my vertical method, lining up my common terms and adding them that way. For the next one, I'll do my horizontal, where I read in a horizontal line. If you want to look more into that, look in your book on page 476, and they compare those methods side by side. Once you get the hang of this, it is your preference, whatever you want to do. So let's attack number 4. We're going to be adding this problem horizontally. And what I did is I just went ahead already and took my 2 equations, or my 2 polynomials, and I lined them up with their common terms. So my x squareds and my x squareds are lined up. My x and my x are lined up, and my numbers are lined up as well. And so you're going to see, as I can add vertically, that helps to just make sure I'm sticking with my common terms. Once we have our common terms established, we only do the math with the coefficients. So let's dive into number 4. I have negative 7.1x squared plus 21x squared. Remember that my term itself, the variables and the exponents, are never going to change with addition and subtraction, but my lead coefficients are. So I do the math with the numbers in front. Negative 7.1 plus 21 gives me 13.9 x squareds. Okay, that's my first set of common terms. I'm going to move on to the next one. Again, I'm going to see that this one has the same variables and the same exponents. They both have x. So that means I can combine them. The x isn't going to change, just the number in front. Negative 180 minus 140 gives me negative 320x. Okay, my last one is just numbers. Now, numbers are always common terms with numbers, which makes sense, but they also have the same variables and exponents. None. So numbers and numbers are common terms based on that definition as well. I can go ahead and simply add straight down my numbers, and I get my answer is 13.9x squared minus 320x plus 7,700. I want you to pause the video and try practice number, or the practice problem under problem 4, which is got it on page 476. And if you're looking at the note handout, I wrote it horizontally. You can choose to just solve it horizontally or rewrite it vertically. I'm going to go ahead and do it vertically on my board. So pause the video, try this, and then we'll go over it. Okay, in this problem, this practice problem, what I did, because I wanted to solve this, demonstrate solving it vertically, I went ahead and I lined up my common terms to start with. So you'll notice in the problem that I have some x cubes, x squareds, x, and numbers. And so I can only combine the common terms. So if I'm lining this up vertically, I can see that actually I'm not going to combine that x cubed with anything. He's all by himself, he has no friends. So it's going to remain negative 12x cubed. Moving on to my x squareds, my x squared is not going to change, just the number in front. And I have 106 plus 14 gives me 120x squared. Moving on, my x's line up. That x isn't going to change, just the number in front. Negative 241 minus 14x gives me negative 255x. These are pretty complicated, and it's going to be easy to lose track of yourself, so make sure you're being careful. Lining them up vertically but by common terms, or you're going to see in our next problem how to do it horizontally. Okay, my last part of this, my last monomial to deal with in this polynomial, just my numbers. And so if I add that together, I get 6,022. So let me just double check that answer in the book. Probably should have done that already. And yes, we are correct. Whew. Okay, that is how we add polynomials. Okay. Subtracting polynomials is very similar, but we have to be very careful about one key concept, and that's going to come in subtracting an entire quantity, which we've seen before. We just always can use the reminder. So I'm going to move my board, and we're going to move on to problem number 5. Okay, again, I mentioned I'm going to solve these horizontally. So number 5 gives me 2 polynomials, and they write it as a math problem. So I want to use this polynomial and subtract this polynomial. And if I'm going to do that horizontally, I have to be very, very careful about this situation. I am subtracting this entire quantity. So that means I'm subtracting everything inside of my quantity. Right now I have parentheses, but I want to think through subtracting every piece, and then I'm going to erase my parentheses. So if I go through, let me get a different color here. If I go through and subtract 7x cubed, it's going to be minus 7x cubed. That one's easy to start with. If I'm going to subtract 5x squared, notice that that's not going to be adding anymore. That's now going to be subtracting. Same thing for this one. If I go ahead and I subtract positive 12, that's going to become subtraction. And now I can go ahead and erase my parentheses so that I was subtracting that entire quantity and they were originally all positive. So actually, let me just double check something. You know what? This was a negative in the original problem. It should now be positive. See, I made a mistake. It happens all the time. Okay, so it was subtraction. Then I'm going to subtract that negative 12, which makes it addition. Okay, if you're following along in your book, you should be right on track, and you probably caught that error before I did. Okay, so once I dealt with my second set of parentheses, I can now deal with my first set. Guess what? They're not necessary anymore. Okay, now I can find horizontally all of my common terms and deal with them. I'm going to go ahead and color code them for your sake at home. But whatever method you like to use is fine. If you want to do circles around common terms and squares around the next set, whatever you want. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to see is my x cubed. So if I use orange to show my x cubes, what number is in front of that? How many of them are there? Well, it's the assumed 1. Then I see over here I'm subtracting 7x cubed. So those are common terms. My x cubed is not going to change, just the number in front. And if I if I do the math with my coefficients, 1 minus 7 gives me negative 6. Negative 6x cubed. What I want you to get in the habit of doing is crossing them out. Done. I already dealt with my x cubes. Next one, x squared. This time I have negative 3x squared, and I'm subtracting 5x squared from that. So my answer is going to still be an x squared. The only thing that's going to change is the number in front. Negative 3 minus 5 gives me negative 8x squared. I'm going to go ahead and cross that out. I dealt with it. Wonderful. Okay, going down in descending order of my exponents is helpful to keep track of it. It's also the way our answers need to be written. When we write our polynomials in standard form, that's what we call it, it just means we're doing descending order of our exponents. So we had cubed, squared. The next one I'm going to look for is x to the first power, or just x. And I see I have one of those right here. But notice, if I look at the rest of my problem, I have no more x's. This guy has no friends, so we're not going to change him at all. He's going to remain 5x. And I'm going to cross him out because I dealt with it. It's done. My last thing, descending order, x cubed, x squared, x. My next one is, remember, that's my x to the 0 because it's not there. I have one number left. And if I look at that, he's the only number. I'm going to add him in unchanged. He has no friends to combine him with. So my final answer for that problem, and it's problem 5 if you're looking along in your book, is negative 6x cubed minus 8x squared plus 5x plus 12. Written correctly in standard form, descending order of exponents. Okay. It's time for you to try practice problems, so pause this video and try the practice problem here. It's in the note handout, and it's also the Got It problem under problem 5 on page 477. Go ahead and pause the video, try that, and remember, use any method at all that you want, whether you want to line them up vertically or solve it horizontally is fine. Okay, I'm going to go a little bit more quickly through this one. Showing you again still how to think through this, how to avoid mistakes. I'm first going to color code my common terms. I noticed right away that my highest power is m cubed, so I'm going to start there. I know my answer needs to be written in descending order, so I'm going to start with my highest exponent. Negative 4m cubed, actually, who caught it? I'm not ready to start this at all. I need to deal with my subtraction of a quantity. I'm getting too excited and I need to slow it down. Okay, I need to first realize I'm subtracting this entire quantity here in this problem. So that means I need to think through distributing that subtraction through everything. If I am subtracting positive 4m squared, that's going to remain as minus 4m squared. However, if I subtract my next one, it's still minus positive m. That's going to change to subtraction. My last one, I'm subtracting a negative 12. And we know when we subtract a negative number, it cancels out and becomes addition. So once I've gone through all of that, that is my new math problem. Another way we can think about it is when we were solving our systems in the last chapters, chapter 6 actually, 2 chapters ago, we knew that when we multiply or divide by a negative 1, we're changing every sign. So if I want to think through that it's addition and then change every sign inside the parentheses, that is the same thing. That will result in the same math problem. But either way, you have to be very careful here when you're subtracting a quantity. Okay, that means I don't need my original or my first quantity to be in parentheses. Now I'm ready to dive in finally. Let's get back to where I was. M cubed is my highest exponent. I'm going to start there. But as I look at all of my other terms, all of my other monomials, I see that I don't have any other cubes. No more m cubes. He has no friends. I'm not going to combine him with anything. So he's going to remain the same. No change. I'm going to cross it out as I go. Going in descending order, I see that next would be my m squared. I see I have 1 here. It's a negative 4m squared. And there are no other m squareds in this problem. Again, he has no friends. We're going to keep him by himself, unchanged. Cross it out as I go. In descending order, the next one, cubed, squared, first power, I see I have this. Negative 1m minus negative 1m. If I do the math with my coefficients, that leaves me with negative 2m. Not changing my variables or my exponents, just the number in front. Cross it out, and I'm done. Then I look at my remaining component, it's just my numbers. I have a positive 9 plus a 12 gives me positive 21. So my answer for this problem is negative 4m cubed minus 4m squared minus 2m plus 21. Again, written in standard form means descending order of exponents. When you do these problems on Khan Academy, they will ask for your answers to be in standard form. That's what it means, descending order of exponents. Okay, there's one more thing I want to touch on before we finish this lesson, and let me clear my board. And it has everything to do with wording. When we started our class and our time together last August, we started with just translating words into math. And one of the most common mistakes that we make is when we have a math problem like this. And you're going to see these used with polynomials. So here is an example. If I wanted to subtract 5 from 8, our habit, for people who are not taking their time and reading carefully, is say, well, subtraction, boom, I know what that is, 5 minus 8. However, that's completely wrong. That is wrong. This key word tells me that I'm switching the order of these numbers. If I'm subtracting 5 from 8, that means 8 is the first number I'm starting with. So it's going to be 8 minus 5. You might be thinking, Mrs. Haggett, what are you doing? This is so basic. We know this. However, whenever you get into your practice problems, you're going to be told to subtract a huge polynomial from a huge polynomial. And you need to make sure that you are getting the order correct. Subtract a number from another means the one after my from is my first number if I'm doing it horizontally, or my top polynomial if I'm doing it vertically. So it's just a little hint there to help you remember that. Okay, that ends section 8.1 for this week. And if you're watching this on the schedule that I provided, then you're almost ready for your Easter break. You know that over your Easter break, you're taking your Chapter 7 test at your leisure at any time over those 5 days. And our Zoom lesson scheduled for Friday is optional. keep that in mind. There's still plenty of ways to prepare for your Chapter 7 test, and you'll see that in the teacher notes on RunWeb. But for this lesson, due Thursday at 5 p.m., you'll see the suggested book problems in your note handout and on RunWeb. And also there's a Khan Academy assignment called Add and Subtract Polynomials, and that is due Thursday at 5 as well. Okay, if you are having any questions or problems with anything, please be emailing me. And again, if you didn't catch something from this lesson or something is tripping you up, start the video over again, watch it again, and hopefully that will help you out. Also, don't forget all of the tools and resources on Khan Academy itself. You can watch those videos too. If you search for the assignment, you're going to see different things that come up. Or even as you're doing the assignment, there are options there for need more help. You can watch videos and watch other teachers teach the same exact lesson. But remember, I'm going to say it here again, remember to be accessing your assignments through your learner homepage. If you don't go to the lessons that way, you will not get any scores recorded on my end of things. So be checking that constantly, be checking your RunWeb and make sure you are accessing them the correct way so that you get credit for all of your work. Okay, have a great day, and if I don't see you, have a great Easter break, and praise the Lord that He is risen and the tomb is empty.